China is seeking to spread its influence further as the Chinese leader Xi Jinping on Thursday pledged over $50 billion in financing for Africa over the next 3 years, promising to deepen cooperation in infrastructure and trade with the continent as he addressed Beijing's biggest summit since the pandemic. Chinese and African leaders held a summit on deepening cooperation in a very divided world. Dozens of African leaders gathered Thursday in Beijing for a summit that signals China's influence in a continent that it hopes will be a key ally in pushing back against a US-led global order. China is hailing the rise of the global south and obviously eyes itself as a self-appointed leader of it. This could be a threat not just for US but also for India that seeks to be the leader of the global south. More than 50 African leaders and UN Secretary General are attending this week's China-Africa Forum. Addressing the leaders at the forum's opening ceremony in Beijing's ornate Great Hall of the People on Thursday morning, Xi hailed ties with the continent as in their best period in history. Xi said, over the next 3 years, the Chinese government is willing to provide financial support amounting to 360 billion yuan or $50.7 billion. Over half of that will be in credit, with $11 billion in various types of assistance, as well as $10 billion through encouraging Chinese firms to invest. He also promised to help create at least 1 million jobs for Africa. China has become a major player in Africa since the forum was founded in 2000. Its companies have invested heavily in mining for the resources Chinese industry needs, and its development banks have made loans to build railways, roads, and other infrastructure under Xi's Belt and Road program. China, the world's number 2 economy, is Africa's largest trading partner and has sought to tap the continent's vast troves of natural resources, including copper, gold, lithium, and rare earth minerals. Bilateral trade hit $167.8 billion in the first half of this year, according to Chinese state media. Beijing's loans to African nations last year were their highest in 5 years, research by the Chinese Loans to Africa database found. Top borrowers were Angola, Ethiopia, Egypt, Nigeria, and Kenya. African leaders have welcomed China's assistance but are pushing for a closer alignment of aid with the continent's development goals. They are seeking to industrialize their economies and expand agricultural exports to reduce a trade deficit with China, which has become sub-Saharan Africa's largest bilateral trading partner. It has also furnished African countries with billions in loans that have helped build much-needed infrastructure, but sometimes stoked controversy by saddling governments with huge debts. Africa is a key node in Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, a massive infrastructure project and central pillar to Xi Jinping's bid to expand China's clout overseas. The BRI has channeled much-needed investment to African countries for projects like railways, ports, and hydroelectric plants. But critics charge Beijing with saddling nations with debt and funding infrastructure projects that damage the environment. One controversial project in Kenya, a $5 billion railway built with finance from Exim Bank of China, connects the capital Nairobi with the port city of Mombasa. But a second phase meant to continue the line to Uganda never materialized, as both countries struggle to repay BRI debts. Kenya's President William Ruto last year asked China for a $1 billion loan and the restructuring of the existing debt to complete other stalled BRI projects. The country now owes China more than $8 billion. The other problem is China's greed for Africa's rich natural resources. In Central Africa, Western and Chinese firms are racing to secure access to rare minerals. The continent has rich deposits of manganese, cobalt, nickel, and lithium, which are crucial for renewable energy technology. The Moanda region of Gabon alone contains as much as a quarter of known global reserves of manganese, and South Africa accounts for 37% of global output of the metal. cobalt mining is dominated by the Democratic Republic of Congo, or the DRC, which accounts for 70% of the world total. But in terms of processing, China is the leader at 50%. Mounting geopolitical tensions between the United States and China, which are clashing over everything from the status of self-ruled Taiwan to trade, which are now weighing on Africa. Washington has warned against what it sees as Beijing's malign influence. In 2022, the White House said China sought to advance its own narrow commercial and geopolitical interests and undermine transparency and openness. Beijing insists it does not want a new Cold War with Washington, but rather seeks win-win cooperation, promoting development while profiting from boosted trade. But analysts fear African nations could be forced to pick sides. African countries lack leverage against China. There is no doubt that Africa and China relationship has moved beyond trade and investment to take a political overtone as China seeks allies in Africa and elsewhere in the developing world for its competition with the United States to define the norms governing the global economy and how countries interact with each other. Do tell us what you think about this video in the comment section, and for more news updates, subscribe to India Today.